Okay, so we just did chapter 5, the South against the North, and now we're going to do chapter 5, the second part, which is called After the Civil War.
After the Civil War. Just days after Robert E. Lee surrendered his forces to Ulysses S. Grant, Abraham Lincoln woke up late at night, gasping with fear. He sat up and looked around him. He was in his bedroom at the White House. The nightmare he'd woken from was just a dream. It wasn't real. But instead of feeling relief, Abraham Lincoln was haunted by dread. The dream had been so vivid. He had been wandering through the White House. Every room was empty. Every hall was deserted. But he could hear wails and groans. The silence was broken by pitiful sobbing, Lincoln told his wife when she asked him why he was frightened. But the mourners were invisible. I went from room to room. No living person was in sight, but the same mournful sounds of distress met me as I passed along. Finally, Lincoln dreamed that he arrived at the east room of the White House. There he saw a coffin resting on a stand, guarded by soldiers. But the face of the man who lay in the coffin was covered. "Who is dead?" Lincoln asked. The nearest soldier answered, "The president."
So he dreamed that the president had been killed by an assassin.
The crowd all around the coffin raised their voices in weeping.
Question 1.
And then Lincoln woke up. "I slept no more that night," he told a friend the next day. "Oh, the dream. I've been strangely annoyed by it ever since." But Lincoln tried to shake the dream away. Only a few days later, Lincoln spent the day meeting with his advisors, planning out how the defeated Confederate States should be brought back into the Union. It was Good Friday, the Friday just before Easter on the Christian calendar, and that same night, he and his wife were supposed to go out and see a play. Lincoln didn't want to go. He was still disturbed by his dream, and his day of dealing with war matters had made him both weary and mournful. But people in Washington were celebrating the end of the war, and the newspapers had already announced that Lincoln would be at the play. The rest of the audience was looking forward to sharing the theater with the president. So Lincoln decided to go. He and his wife rode a carriage through the dim, cool night to Ford's Theater.
Ford's Theater, question
just before
2.
the play began, around 9 o'clock in the evening, and walked to their box, a special private balcony where Lincoln could sit in a rocking chair and watch the play in comfort. A police officer named John Parker had been assigned to stand at the door that led from the hallway into Lincoln's box. He was supposed to keep anyone from coming through. But after half an hour or so, Parker got so interested in the play that he left his post and wandered down to the main floor
Question
and
3.
sat with the audience.
The police officer left to go watch.
Was unguarded. Outside of it hid a man who hated Lincoln and the United States. He was an actor named John Wilkes Booth.
John
Although
Wilkes
he had
Booth.
been born in Maryland, he thought of himself as a Southerner. Instead of fighting in the Civil War, he had gone on acting in plays. He felt guilty because he had not defended the South. So now he had formed a plan.
Okay, so John Wilkes Booth, question 4, felt guilty because he kept acting and didn't fight in the war. And so Lincoln's death, he's going to be assassinated by John Wilkes, which is spelled Wilkes, Booth, Booth, at Ford's Theater. Okay, so he's going to be assassinated by Booth at Ford's Theater. And he's going to, and we'll see when he dies.
He would redeem himself by fighting the greatest fight of all, against Lincoln, the enemy of the Southern states. Now, John Wilkes Booth crashed through the door of Lincoln's box and fired a pistol directly at the president. Lincoln slumped down in his chair. Booth leaped up onto the side of the box, ready to jump down onto the stage below. He planned to dash across the stage and out the side door of the theater. In the alley outside the door, he had left a horse, saddled and ready to ride away. But a Union flag hung on the balcony's side. Booth's heel caught it. He twisted in the air and broke his leg as he landed. Dragging his leg behind him, he limped from the stage and out the door and clambered onto his horse. He rode south into Virginia, expecting to be welcomed as a hero by Virginians. But although he stopped at several farms, the owners wanted nothing to do with him. Booth rode deeper and deeper into the Virginia countryside, his leg aching with each jolt of his horse's hooves. Back at the theater, a doctor was trying to revive Lincoln, but it was too late. Lincoln was still breathing, but he was unconscious. Early the next morning, he died without ever awakening.
So
again.
he died the next morning without
His body
awakening.
was laid out in the East Room, where soldiers guarded it, and crowds came to weep, just as in his dream. 12 days later, Union soldiers who had been searching the countryside for Booth finally found him. He was hiding in a barn in Virginia on a farm near the Rappahannock River. The soldiers set the barn on fire to drive him out and shot him as he came to the front door. On the day he was shot, Lincoln had told another government official, "If we are wise and discreet, we shall reanimate the states and get their governments in successful operation, with order prevailing and the Union reestablished. I hope there will be no persecution, no bloody work after the war is over. Enough lives have been sacrificed." But although the war was over, it would be many years before the United States was healthy again. Lincoln's assassination showed just how much hatred remained in the country. Many Southerners still hated the northern states, and even worse, many whites still hated blacks. In December of 1865, 8 months after Lincoln's death, the United States passed the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. This meant that the Constitution of the United States now included these words: "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction." In other words, no one could be held prisoner and forced to work unless he had been convicted of a crime and sent to jail. And the states could no longer decide for themselves whether or not slavery should be legal. It was illegal in every state of the Union.
Okay, so Booth was discovered hiding in a barn in Virginia. He was shot. After Lincoln's assassination, the U.S. was filled with hatred. Many Southerners hated the Northerners, and many whites hated blacks. So the United States after Lincoln's death, number 2 in the outline, it was hatred between Southerners and Northerners, and hatred between whites and blacks. The 13th Amendment, which is in your outline, number 3, stated that no one could be held prisoner and forced to work unless they were convicted of a crime, and slavery was illegal in every state in the Union. So the 13th Amendment states slavery is illegal.
Basically, no slavery anymore.
No slavery, and you can't be held a prisoner and forced to work unless you are a criminal. So you have to be a criminal. So that's the same question that's up there. What did the 13th Amendment to the Constitution say? That's the same as the outline, so you can just say, see the outline. Does that make sense? Okay.
The years after the Civil War were called a time of Reconstruction.
Reconstruction.
For the southern United States, but not very much rebuilding went on. Although the Constitution said that slaves were to be freed, the government of the United States did not help these slaves to get any land where they could live, nor did the slaves win any payment for the years they had spent working for their masters. Instead, the free blacks of the South, penniless, had to try to earn their own living, usually on farms owned by white farmers who were bitter that the United States had taken away their slaves. These free blacks were often treated just as badly as they had been during slavery. Slavery had ended, but it would be many more years before African Americans were given all of the freedoms and privileges of whites.
Okay, so Reconstruction, which was the answer to the third to last question, was supposed to be in the outline 4A, was supposed to be a time of rebuilding. Okay, so Reconstruction was supposed to be rebuilding, but the free blacks were given no help. So they're given no help by the government. They had to earn their livings on farms owned by whites, or they were treated as badly as they had been during slavery. Okay, just those three things. They're given no help. They had to earn a living on farms owned by whites, and they're treated as badly as they had during slavery. So the second to last question, did the government of the United States help the freed slaves? No. No, they're ending up working on farms with people that are mad that they don't have slaves anymore. Okay? So let's talk about your map real quickly. So there's only one map for this chapter instead of two. And you're going to need 3 different colored pencils. So Sige, why don't you grab, I want everybody right now to actually get 3 different colors. So you can grab crayons if you want, or colored pencils. So everybody go get 3 colors of your choice, because I think this is important to do here in this. So, okay, so choose one of your colored pencils to represent the southern states. Okay? Okay, and shade those southern states in with your colored pencil. And so the southern states were South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas.
Well, North Carolina and Tennessee joined also, right?
Well, first, we've got the southern states. So South Carolina, and I'm coloring them in here too. Mississippi, I'm coloring mine red. Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. Okay, so there's mine. I just colored it in there on the bottom. Now what it says to do, so you notice you have the names of the states on the map. Choose one of your colored pencils to represent the southern states. Abraham Lincoln felt he had no choice but to declare war. 2 months before, 7 states had announced they would no longer belong to the United States. Shade those in with your colored pencil. Okay, so those are the states that first pulled out. But not every state was pleased that Lincoln was going to go to war. So now pick another color.
They joined with them, right?
Hold on. 2 days later, Virginia joined the Confederate States. A month later, 3 more states left the United States. So using the same color that you chose for the Confederate States now, color Virginia and the 3 other states, which is who?
North Carolina, Tennessee, and Arkansas?
It was, Arkansas joined, so color that red. Virginia joined, so color that red. Arkansas, we said Arkansas, Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. So now we've got all of these that are red right here, okay? And then along the border between North and the South, 5 states sent a message to the president that they would not join the Confederacy. Okay, these are the neutral states. Okay, so go ahead and color Kentucky. Color these a different color. I'm going to color them blue. Kentucky, Missouri.
Are these the neutral states?
Neutral states. West Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware are neutral.
We said Missouri?
Yep. Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. So now you can see how this sort of has a border going across them. Those are the neutral states. And now, okay, we've got our union states, and I want you to color those another color. So I'm going to choose green. I guess I would have been smart if I did red and blue, huh? Mm-hmm. But I didn't do that. That's what I did. Sige did that. He did it better. Okay, so now I'm going to do the Union states, which is going to be Maine, New Hampshire. Where is New Hampshire on here?
It's right next to Vermont.
Oh, my map doesn't go up that high.
Oh, mine does.
Mine doesn't go up that high. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, which is right there, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois. Also, we had Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Kansas, California, Oregon, and Nevada.
So all the other states, pretty much.
Not all of them,
Well,
but
the ones that aren't territory.
Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Kansas, California, Oregon, and Nevada. Okay? So I can't color all those in on mine, but Sidge did it on his map. And that's the end of the map work there for that. And then one other thing that's in your packet is the, so student page 23, can you turn to that, Sidge? So student page 23, you guys should have that in your printout. So go ahead and turn to that. And it says, people in the Confederate States saw the Civil War in very different ways from the people in the United States. In fact, many people in the South thought that it shouldn't be called the Civil War at all. Below is a list of names that people had for the Civil War. Each has its own meaning. If you called it the War in the Defense of Virginia, you probably lived in Virginia, one of the Confederate states. If you called it the War to Save the Union, you probably lived in the northern states. So next to each name, we're going to write a C or a U or a B. Okay? C is going to be if you're in a Confederate state. U is going to be if you're in the Union. And B is going to be both states could have used the same name. All right. So Sidge, what do you think about Mr. Lincoln's War?
Probably Union.
That's Confederate.
Really?
Yeah. The war of the 60s
Probably both.
was both. The war for Southern freedom,
Probably Confederate.
Confederate. The war of the Southern rebellion,
That's probably Union.
Union. The late unpleasantness,
Maybe both.
both. The Great Rebellion,
Confederate.
that's Union.
Okay.
Union. Number 7, the Second American Revolution,
Probably both.
that's Confederate. Number 8, and actually what it would be good if you guys did was if you pause this video right now that we've done a few, pause it, go through and see if you can get the right answers, and then restart it here and see if you agree with me. So pause the video, fill in your answers, and now let's unpause it, and Sidge and I will keep going here. The Second American Revolution is Confederate. The War of the Southern Planters,
Union.
Union. The Brothers' War, could be both. The War of Northern Aggression,
That'd be Confederate.
Confederate. The War for Constitutional Liberty is also Confederate. The Yankee Invasion,
Probably Union.
it's Confederate. The War in Defense of Virginia is also Confederate. The War of the Rebellion, Sidge, what do you think?
Probably it could kind of be both.
It's Union. The War to Save the Union, that's easy.
Yeah, Union.
Union. The War of Southern Independence,
Confederate.
Confederate. The war for abolition,
Probably.
Union.
Yeah, Union.
The war for Southern nationality,
Probably Confederate.
Confederate. The war against slavery,
Union.
Union. The war for Southern rights,
Confederate.
Confederate. The Confederate War,
Probably Union. Or Confederate. It could be kind of be both.
Confederate War would be Union. The war to suppress Yankee arrogance,
Union.
Confederate. The war for separation, Confederate.
Confederate.
And the war for states' rights,
Union. Confederate.
Confederate. Okay, and then I wanted you guys, after I get off here, I want you guys to each read the Gettysburg Address. And that was Abraham Lincoln dedicated the Soldiers' National Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. His speech was so short that the photographer at the dedication didn't even get to take a picture of Lincoln speaking. Today, the Gettysburg Address is seen as one of the best speeches in history. At the time, though, people weren't as fond of it. The Chicago Sun-Times commented, "The cheek of every American must tingle with shame as he reads the silly, flat, and dishwatery utterances of the man who has to be pointed out to intelligent foreigners as the President of the United States." Since then, people have come to appreciate it more. It's now inscribed on the south wall of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., and every year people recite the speech on the anniversary of its first delivery, which was November 19. So it tells you to memorize the speech, which I'm not going to have you do. But I want you guys, when you get off, to all read the Gettysburg Address. I gave you a copy of it. And then I also want you to read about Walt Whitman. He heard about Abraham Lincoln's assassination, and this was the eulogy that he wrote for him. It's actually a metaphor. Lincoln is compared to a ship's captain. The United States, which has just made it through the Civil War, is represented by a ship returning safely from a long journey. The poem was so popular that Whitman was asked to recite it constantly. Okay, so I'm going to read that to you guys, and then you guys are going to read the Gettysburg Address on your own as soon as we get off. "O Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every rack. The prize we sought is won. The port is near. The bells I hear. The people all exulting. While follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But oh heart, 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 oh the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. O Captain, my Captain, rise up and hear the bells. Rise up, for you the flag is flung, for you the bugle trills. For you bouquets and ribboned wreaths, for you the shores are crowding. For you they call, the swaying mass, their eager faces turning. Here, Captain, dear father, this arm beneath your head. It is some dream that on the deck you've fallen cold and dead. My captain does not answer. His lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm. He has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored safe and sound, its voyage closed and done. From fearful trip, the victor ship comes in with object won. Exalt, O shores, and ring, O bells, but I with mournful tread walk the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. So you guys go ahead and read the Gettysburg Address, and then don't forget you had some homework from chapter 4 that you guys were supposed to finish. You were supposed to read that section and answer the questions with that. So make sure you do that. We're going to look at that on Monday when you get to class.